Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I am the CEO for COABE and very excited to welcome you to our event here today. We have with us Burke Allen and Shaylee Priya, and we're very excited because Burke has been really instrumental in helping COABE to talk to the press. So we have nearly 200 that have registered for this webinar, and Burke is going to go ahead and get us started. I just want to mention too, if you came to COABE 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee, you had the opportunity to see a gentleman who sang us out, and he was the winner of America's Got Talent, and he was quite the star, and we were able to work with him thanks to Burke. So I want to say thank you, Burke, for bringing him in, for helping us with all the media connections, and for all the great work you're going to do here in helping our local programs, teachers, and administrators learn how to talk to the press. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sharon. Hey, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day to be with us. We're going to talk about how to get your important messaging out in your local markets for adult education. And we call it mastering the message. And I'm going to give you a ton of information in a really short amount of time. And no worries, we can get you these PowerPoint slides and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have afterwards. My website address is there. You're going to get my email address, my phone number. I'm happy to help. We believe in the mission of what you guys are doing, so we are ready to rock and roll. In the next hour or less, if I can jam it in there, you're going to learn the psychology of how to give great interviews, our Allen Media Strategies interview formula. We've had the company 25 years. We know what works. Sharon did a ton of media interviews to help get the football through the goalpost earlier. We're going to give you our advanced techniques, how to pitch, who to pitch. All the information is coming your way, so get ready. Why is this important? So we have experts in all fields, doctors, attorneys, the talking heads that you see on TV or that you hear on the radio, political folks, think tank folks, authors, celebrities. They pay thousands of dollars for the kind of training you're going to get today. And that's because one great interview appearance or impression can massively move the needle for adult education. Conversely, you do this wrong, one bad interview, appearance, or impression could massively set back your cause. So you don't want to screw it up. We're going to help you not do that. You will get all of this training that people pay thousands for free today. And if you stick around to the end, yes, you will get a free gift as well. All right, we're going to get your interview ready. Here we go. Here's what most folks who are new to this whole thing get wrong. First of all, they don't realize that if you do see someone on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, you hear somebody interviewed on a talk show or on a podcast, you think it just was by happenstance that a reporter or producer went out and found those folks. That's not true. There are companies like us who are behind almost all of those expert interviews. And when you actually get an interview, if you think the interview is about you, you're completely wrong. It's not about you. It's about them. Who's the them? The audience, the reader of the publication or the website, the television viewer, the podcast listener. You got to make the interview about them. You can't ramble on and on without making clear points. You have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We'll tell you how to do that. You don't get to your key points. You got to have those. I'm going to hit that over and over again today. If you sound really boring or overly rehearsed, like you're reading a script, that's a no-no. And you miss a golden opportunity to connect. That's what you do wrong. So here's the challenge. There are two kinds of exposure you can get for adult education. There's earned media, we're going to spend most of our time talking about that today, versus paid media. Paid media is when you buy commercial advertising, right? McDonald's or Geico with the little gecko. They have billion-dollar budgets. Adult education does not have that. As you know, it's done with bubble gum and baling wire in lots of cases. So we advocate earned media. Now, what does that mean? That means you earn your way on to these media platforms. And the struggle with generating earned media is you have to bring something to that outlet that they want to share with their readers, their viewers, their listeners. And the struggle is if you don't have a very focused pitch, and I mean laser focused going in, they're going to blow you off. If your pitch is too generic and it sounds like everyone else, you're not going to get anywhere. Maybe you don't know who to pitch. How do I get to that reporter? How do I get to that TV show? I'm going to show you how to do that today. Sometimes we'll forget that no doesn't really mean no. And in fact, we don't get a lot of no's. What we generally get in our company is no answer. They don't even get back to us. That also doesn't mean no. It generally means not now. So you have to continue to drip your messaging out there. Maybe you have a fear of being too salesy. Look, nobody likes to be sold to, but the fact of the matter is a great salesperson is a huge benefit to you. I'm going to show you how to sell our way and sell your message. And maybe you don't understand what will motivate the people on the other end who open these earned media pitches. You have two audiences, right? You have the readers and listeners of the media outlet, like the podcast, the TV show, the radio show, the newspaper, the magazine, the website. But you first, before you ever get to them, have to get through the person who's receiving your pitch email at the TV station, the podcast, the radio show. So you got to know what motivates those folks. And this should be something you with COABE really key in on, and that's the human interest angle. So what makes a media pitch irresistible to the media outlet? Let's get into the psychology a little bit. Here's what you need to think about when you write these pitches. And I'm going to give you specific examples of what works, but I want you to think big picture here. Think globally. The psychology behind the pitch reader's reaction. You have to have an emotional connection backed up by facts. You need relatable human experiences. We're going to talk specifically about that for adult education. If you can do this next one, it exponentially increases your chances of getting coverage, and that's timely or newsworthy angles. You need to have a clear benefit to your audience, and it needs to be something that's memorable and shareable. They used to call it water cooler talk. What are people talking about the next day? What's the Travis and Taylor engagement story that you can bring with adult ed? Remember, first of all, it's not about you. It's about them. Who's the them? The audience, your potential adult ed advocates and supporters. And these folks don't just want to be preached to. They want to be, first of all, and I know this may be a stretch, entertained and informed. And finally, for you, inspired. If you go in there and you're dry as paint on a wall, nobody's going to care about what you have to say. You got to be entertaining, got to bring the energy, okay? Your job when you do these interviews is to show how you can make their lives better, not just the people who need your services, but the community at large. And you want to show them that adult ed is the solution to their problem. So think about how can I serve the listeners, the readers, the viewers by selling adult ed and its benefits. Now, this is what I mean by selling. It's an acronym for us. Sell stands for story. You got to hook them with a narrative. Expertise. You have to establish your credibility that you know what in the world you're talking about. You have to give a lesson. Actionable value needs to come out of what you have to say, something they can do something with. And you need to link back to you. It's that trail of digital breadcrumbs that will lead people to interact with your adult ed services in your community. That is what I mean by selling. And that's what at Allen Media Strategies we teach all our clients to do, be they celebrities, be they authors, entertainers, TV folks, and now you. So the first S there, the S in sell, stories. Why do they sell? Again, the psychology, the power of a story. As human beings, we are wired for narrative. We love a good story. Stories create an emotional connection. And as you think back to your time with adult ed, I want you to think about the stories of the lives you have changed. And not just individual lives, but generationally, the lives that you change. Personal examples, if you can come up with those, they're very memorable. And you may want to get permission from the adult ed learner. You may want to change a name. You may use anecdotes, but stories are huge. For example, Sharon mentioned him before. I want to tell you about my friend Landau. Landau Eugene Murphy Jr. grew up in my town. It was a little coal mining town deep in the Appalachian Mountains. 3,000 people live in that town. I went into the entertainment business, the media marketing business. Landau was a singer. He went on to eventually, after many years and many struggles, win America's Got Talent by the largest margin in that show's history. But there was something missing for Landau. You see, Landau dropped out of high school. And 30 years later, after winning America's Got Talent, after he and I had toured all over the world, from China to Dubai to all through Europe, all across the United States, when COVID happened in 2020, all concert tours ceased around the globe. And suddenly, Landau was home. He was frustrated. He was scared. He thought his entertainment career may be over. He was bored, but he had time that he never had before. And he used that time wisely to focus on going back to school to get his adult education, his high school equivalency diploma. He asked me about it. I didn't know what to do. I began searching online. I found a bunch of websites that were going to charge him tens of thousands of dollars to get his degree. Eventually, I found West Virginia Adult Ed, and the folks there helped Landau get his GED. I've never seen him as proud of anything as I saw he was when he walked across that stage to get his diploma in his cap and gown. His family was there, his little boy was there, his mother came out. That was the happiest he's been. And that includes winning America's Got Talent, winning that $1 million. That GED was more important to Landau. So, how does that relate to you? Find your Landau. Find someone in your market that can be a spokesperson because you can see just from this quick screen grab I did all of the earned media exposure we've achieved with Landau. At the top there, you see a TV story from the CW network.
Burke, we can't see your slides. I'm sorry.
Oh, you can't see the slides. Oh, very good. Well, thank you for letting me know.
Yes.
Stand by, please.
And while Burke is pulling those slides up, if you have questions, you can post them in the Q&A and feel free to chat in the chat box. Thanks, everyone.
Stand by, guys. I'm grabbing those slides for you right now. And Sharon, let me know if you can see slides of Landau.
Looks great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So this is a lot of the TV exposure that we received with Landau Eugene Murphy Jr. By telling his adult ed story. And the very top slide is a billboard that the adult ed folks were able to get up and a TV story that was done about that campaign. And you can see these are all different TV appearances that Landau did talking about his journey with adult education. If you can find a Landau in your market, it would be hugely helpful to you. And he doesn't have to be an America's Got Talent winner. It can be anyone. But look for those great stories. Humans are wired for great stories. All right, the E in the cell analogy, the E is expertise. You have to have credibility. People need to know what you're talking about. Credibility without bragging. You need to lead with results, not your credentials, not I've done all of these things and I know. Lead with the results. Talk about how many people and specific numbers and outcomes have been helped in your community and who those people are. Share their success stories. If you have research or studies, numbers are very, very effective. So reference those research studies and let your knowledge speak naturally. Again, you don't want to be professorial. You don't want to be too inside baseball. You want to speak to people where they live when you talk about the benefits of adult education. This is hugely important. This is personally important to me. Walking with Landau through his adult ed journey got me emotionally invested, and I learned how important what each of you do all over the country is in those communities. And I will tell you, and I'm in the media business and have been my whole career, I was not aware of the impact that each of you can have in those towns. So I guarantee you, most people outside your silo, your personal sphere of experience and influence, they have no idea how important what it is you do. You need to share your expertise. That's the E in the cell analogy. The L's are lessons and links. And that's the aha moment where you give that actionable value. So I want you to think about this. And actually, I had this conversation with Sharon last week. How can you make news with what you're doing? There are lots of ways you can make news, but you want to think about that. Are there things that you can key in on to make news, make it worth someone giving you coverage? Because this is earned media. Remember, you have to earn your way in there. And for each media exposure, you want to leave the audience, the reader, the viewer, the listener, with one golden nugget for each one, one golden nugget per exposure, and make it immediately actionable. What can they do with it right now? If you can create one, I need to write this down moment. If you ever listen to a podcast and go, wow, that's a great idea, I got to write that down. You make a note on your phone. Think about how you can build those in. And that value builds trust, and the trust then sells itself. You don't have to sell as hard. And last but not least, and this is super important, and lots of our clients make this mistake, have a clear path to action. What does that mean? I talked about digital breadcrumbs earlier. Make sure that you close every interview with a way for potential adult learners to get to you. Or maybe it's a corporate sponsor, or maybe it's someone who could be a funder or could assist you in some way. Make sure they can find you quickly and easily. Now, I promised you I was going to give the real stuff, right? I'm going to show you a couple of specific media pitches that we have sent out for our clients to show you how you build these emails that you send out to try to generate attention. The one that's on your screen now is done. We put together for a business person, a very successful business person in the Mid-Atlantic, a multimillionaire who wanted to brand himself to tell his story. And he grew up in a hard scrabble railroad town, single mom, no money, very difficult background. And he wants to help bring other young people who had similar backgrounds into a world of financial literacy. So we built this story around a calendar event, Father's Day, and this business leader who mentored thousands on filling what's called the dad gap. So in my research, I'm Googling around and I found this research study from the National Center for Fathering about this crisis with children who grow up without a father in their home and how much worse things are for them. And I built this around him. And Tony's his name. He's a super nice guy, but he's in the insurance business. It's kind of dry. It's not very interesting and exciting. So we needed to find a good angle for Tony. And this is what we did. Sure enough, the very next day, he had an opportunity to do a national television interview the week of Father's Day because we keyed it in on EWTN, which is the National Catholic News Network. It was a huge win for him. Here's a very specific pitch that we actually did for COABE for Sharon. And the first thing you'll see up there is where it says centrist version. We did during Sharon's Media Blitz different media pitches for centrist media, progressive media, and conservative media. This was the centrist version. And the most important thing in each of these pitches is the subject line. And by the way, almost all of our pitches follow a very similar format. We have to have a great subject line that will encourage viewers of these emails to open them up. If they don't open them, it doesn't matter what they say. Next thing that is always the same is they're always short because we're all busy. We all get a lot of emails. So you have to tell them what it is very quickly. Generally speaking, the way we do our pitches is the first paragraph talks about what the big story is that you're tying into. Second paragraph goes into a little detail about what you specifically have to say about that story. This was a hard news story. Your stories don't have to be hard news, but you tie it in there. And then after that, you'll see we give sample talking points, sample questions. And we find that about 85 to 90% of the time, the interviewers will go right down that list of questions. Now, why would they do that? Well, it's because they do 30, 35, 40 interviews a week. They don't have time to do a lot of research. So we spoon feed it to them. That's the template you use for these media pitches. And at the very end, of course, your contact information. So that's our hook framework, right? The Allen Media Strategies Media Hook Framework. Problem plus a solution, and then the proof and the payoff. So think about this when you write these. What problem does your adult ed organization solve in your community? And how do you solve it uniquely? How are you one of the only ones, or maybe the only one, that does it the way you do it? How do you zig when they zag? How are you different than the rest? What's your credibility? You have a good story to tell. What's in it for the pitch reader? How can they benefit their audience? So here's how I would like for you to practice this on your own. I want to give you actionable steps you can take. First of all, you want to think about each media interview as lasting about 4 minutes long. Sometimes they'll go longer. On podcasts, you'll get into a longer conversation. Sometimes, though, if you're doing a TV, let's say a local TV morning show, maybe you're doing the local news talk radio station, 4 minutes is an average interview length. 4 minutes goes by fast. And if you don't believe me, next time you get up early, watch Good Morning America or the Today Show and clock those interview segments. So, within a 4 minute interview, you need to be able to introduce yourself, share one compelling anecdote or story, give an actionable tip, get your call to action in there. And you've got to be able to do that in a back and forth with another person. So, I would challenge you, do a couple of practice interviews, have someone ask you some questions, get that timer on, and get it done in 4 minutes. Here's some things to watch out for. Here's where it can go sideways. I want to help you to not screw this up, okay? The well, that's your brain's gears trying to kick in while you get to the next thing you're supposed to talk about. Try to get past that. If you have crutches, we call those verbal crutches. One thing you can do is, let's say you're doing a Zoom interview, and by the way, most of these are on Zoom now or on the telephone. You can put them up on Post-it notes. The words that you tend to lean on, the ums and the wells, write it in a Sharpie, put it on the Post-it, put it in front of you, and you won't do it again. Don't go off on a tangent. I have really, really, really smart people that we work with who are so smart that they've often taught at the university level or at very high levels within the government. And they get very professorial. They tend to go off on a tangent like it's a speech. You can't do that. It has to be a back and forth. Forget to breathe, and then you run out of breath before you get to the end of the sentence. You never want to ask questions that you aren't asked in an interview setting. Don't talk yourself into a corner. And if you don't bridge back to your core message, you can get yourself in trouble. Bridging and redirecting may be the most important thing I'll teach you today. Here's the bridge technique. What is that? You've seen it a million times. Some people are really good at it, some people aren't. I live in Washington, D.C., and I know lots of you will be here in the middle of September. I look forward to meeting you in person. Um, Great politicians do this all the time. It's where they try to stay on message even when they're asked tough questions, right? It's often called the pivot, where you pivot back to where you want to be. Now, let me be crystal clear here. I don't ever want you to evade, stonewall, or avoid answering a question. We always advocate with our clients that they acknowledge the question, answer it briefly, even if it's something you don't want to answer, you don't know. You answer it and then bridge to your key messaging. So if somebody says to you, well, isn't it true that most of these adult education programs, they fail and they don't work and people drop out? Well, you might answer by saying, well, that's interesting. And what I find is exactly the opposite. We've got a 95% retention rate. You go on to your next thing. Or you pivot by saying, hey, it's a great question. It reminds me of Jose, who went through our program and he turned his life around. Or you answer by not answering and say, well, here's what's important. Here's what's important that you know. And what you're subliminally saying is, That stupid question you just asked doesn't really matter. Here's what's important to your viewers, your listeners, and your readers. Learn how to bridge and get back to where you're going. And sometimes you can use the 1+1 technique. Answer with yes or no, and then bridge to where you want to go. Body language, super important for video interviews, whether they're on Zoom or in person, especially especially if you go into your local TV station and you're on TV. You want to sit forward just a little bit, lean in slightly with the interviewer. It shows that you're engaged. Don't ever cross your arms. It makes you look angry and confrontational. Be open. Use eye contact with the interviewer. Um, Now, that's by the way, if you're talking one on one with the interviewer, it's different if you're doing a media interview on Zoom, and lots of them are on Zoom or Teams these days. In that case, you need to get in the habit of looking at the camera, the little green dot on your screen or your external camera. The temptation is to look at the person who's on your screen and then you're looking completely away. So look at the camera, okay? Use genuine smiles. It shows in your voice as well. It actually, in many cases, brings your voice up by about a quarter of an octave. So smile. You're talking about good stuff. Bring the goodness and use your hands to emphasize your points. Now, don't talk in front of your face with your hands, but use your hands. Okay? This is all important. And sound like the expert you are. The worst thing you can do is say, well, I don't really know. Now, if you're doing a print interview with a print journalist, you don't have an answer. I'm not saying that you make something up. You can say, that's a great question. Let me research that and I'll get back to you. When's your deadline? Ask them when the deadline is and then get back to them. But you're going to go into these things knowing more about this topic than the person who's interviewing you. So sound like an expert. How do you do that? And sound is super important to me. I grew up in the radio business. I was an on-air talent for a lot of years. You have to use your voice like an instrument. When you do an audio interview, whether it's a podcast or radio interview, you need to vary your pace and the tone of your voice. You need to pause. If you are emphasizing a point, sometimes pause and just let it hang there. You can say, this adult education degree changes lives. Let it hang there for a second. And if you've got something important you want to say, give it some gravitas. Lower your voice. Listen, this is important for you to hear. If this funding goes away, it will destroy our downtown area. Eliminate all the filler words, get to the meat of what you have to say, and project confidence and enthusiasm. You are the expert on the topic. And I do want to say one thing here. When I talk about radio, I'm talking about any audio delivery. When I talk about TV, I'm talking about any video delivery. Cell phones are today's radios. Most people listen to the radio on their phone. So video and audio is what I'm talking about. All right, there's some essential skills you need to succeed here. One of them is developing your 30-second elevator pitch. If somebody asks you what you do, you better be able to tell them in 30 seconds or less. You've heard that terminology, right? The elevator pitch. Somebody asks you at the first floor, tell them before you get off on the 10th floor. Get your elevator pitch down. Be ready to handle tough questions. Hey, listen, I'm a big Trump supporter, and he says that this funding is going away. And so I think that's a good thing. That's a hypothetical, of course, but you need to be able to handle whatever the tough question is and anticipate them. We talked about body language, vocal delivery, staying on message, being able to pivot and redirect back is essential for you. And creating quotable moments. One of our longtime clients is a NASA astronaut, Charlie Camarda. Charlie went up on the space shuttle right after the explosion, right after Columbia. And he was on the very next mission. And now he does lots of TV commentary. And if you remember a couple of months ago, when the Dragon, SpaceX Dragon, splashed down and the dolphins came out, and it was like too good to be true, how well that all came out. Charlie Camardo was doing TV commentary on live national television, and he said, look, it looks like Elon Musk just saved NASA. It was a great quotable line. Take the politics out of it. Here's why it was a great quotable line. Of course, on Twitter and X, everybody piled onto it, including, of all people, Elon Musk, who picked it up and retweeted it to his 73 million followers. You need quotable moments for adult ed. And this is a challenging time for adult ed. Let's turn those challenges into opportunities for you. Because if everything were hunky dory and the funding was going to flow and there were no problems, it'd be really, really hard for you to get exposure. We'd find ways for you. It'd be a lot tougher. Turn these challenging times into opportunities to get your message across. At all times, you want to stay calm and composed. I do not advocate you ever being argumentative with a media outlet. I want you to acknowledge without accepting a premise you don't agree with. So, for example, you may wind up doing a very political talk show, and that opinion host may be very strident in their opinions. That doesn't mean that you need to agree with them just because you're on their show. I know there's some talk in Washington about blah, blah, blah. Well, what we're really talking about is what's happening here in Lincoln, Nebraska. This is what's really happening in Des Moines, Iowa. This is what's going on in Cedar Rapids that affects you in your life. So you steer it away from that big national conversation. Redirect to what you know in your community and don't get defensive or argumentative. You can do that. Create sound bites that sell. And by the way, we will save some time for questions at the end, so get them in and we'll answer as many as we can. One memorable phrase per interview. Think about what that leave behind, that nugget is. Make them all tweetable, what you have to say. Elon Musk saved NASA. Use metaphors, use analogies. That goes back to being a great storyteller. If you can create contrast, we have seen in focus group research that that is sticky. People remember the contrast. Most people think this, but in actuality, it's that. You know, most people think that, and I'll again use a very inflammatory example, that, adult education, teaching English as a second language is just for illegal immigrants who come to this country and they're taking all their jobs. Well, most people think that, but in reality, these are, overwhelmingly United States citizens or folks who have green cards, or whatever the answer is. End with impact. Have a quotable moment. So, do you have a personal transformation story? Is there somebody that your organization has worked with and you've seen it change their life for the better? Are there contrarian viewpoints that you can exploit where you might think something is a little different? Is there a timely social issue that comes up into the news? Here's the secret about what we do. We consume the top stories every day. Now, we're not news junkies per se, but we look to see what the world is talking about. It could be pop culture stuff like Taylor and Travis or the Cracker Barrel story. It could be hard news things, but we look to see what's out there and we look for ways to tie it in. Could be calendar events, by the way. Could be Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. Behind the scenes revelations. Is something that happens in the organization that the world doesn't know about? Probably a lot, right? Get the word out. How-to solutions. How can you get someone into adult education? What are the 3 steps you can take to help get someone started on getting their GED? And of course, those inspirational journeys are huge. So, how do you handle hostile interviewers? Calm, cool, collected, know your material before you go in, and don't buy into that baiting. Just stay true to yourself. Here's a fact. If a hostile interviewer asks you a question more than 3 times, again, research and focus groups show that they are perceived to be the attacker. They're perceived to be the bully. Just stay the course. Be calm. How do you handle unexpected questions? Well, you gameplay it out in advance. Anticipate what you're going to hear and who you're going to hear it from. And by the way, you can do all this research online. The internet has made being an interviewee much easier because you can Google that show. I had a client years ago that got an interview on the Howard Stern show, very excited until they learned who Howard Stern was. And then they're like, oh my God, what do I do? Well, you watch the show, you listen, you know what you're getting into. How do you deal with technical difficulties? Again, cool heads prevail, but you can minimize those technical issues. Are you doing a Zoom interview? Make sure you are close to your modem as close as possible. And if you can hardwire into your computer and eliminate any issues, that's great. If you have to do an interview on your phone, don't use AirPods. Eliminate all the background noise. Don't do it while you're driving. Pull over to the side of the road so that you keep the road noise down. If you're doing an interview from home, put a sign up on the front door so that it tells the FedEx guy not to knock, because sure enough, that's when they'll knock and that's when the dog will bark. So do everything you can in advance. Know your time constraints. Many shows have a hard out. This is a 4-minute interview, so be ready, be prepared for that. And also, multiple guests. You might be on a panel with somebody else or two others, somebody else's. You need to be strident to get your foot in the door and get your comments across. Don't just lay back and be intimidated. Make sure you get your points out there. Here's where your hook gets results. You need to go after those local TV morning shows. And most markets, even small markets now, have a soft news TV show. Studio 3 is one that's in a market we work in a lot, and it airs from 11 a.m. to noon, where they have local community people come in. Find the Studio 3 or the First at 4 TV shows. They're much more amenable to these kinds of topics. Look for the local radio news talk interviewer. Sometimes they do Sunday morning public affairs shows that they pre-record. Sometimes they do a daily talk show. There's usually at least one in every market, no matter how small that market is. Look for podcasters. That's how you can really get well-defined niches. Print and online features. Who's the local journalist? Lots of small towns only have a weekly newspaper now. Make it easy for that one journalist who's still there. Maybe you pre-write something for them. Amplify everything you do with social media and email marketing, and make sure that it's all themed across in all ways. Also, look for ways to get out and do presentations to civic groups, your local Rotary Club, your Kiwanis Club, your Lions Club. Get adult education in front of those folks. Now, each of these mediums are a little different. In television, it's all about visual storytelling, right? If you've got some photos, like I showed you of Landau earlier, some video, they call that B-roll, and that runs during your interview. Get that to them in advance. Sound bites, if you're being interviewed, it needs to be shorter because they're building a package. So speak in sound bites, and be very animated when you're on TV. Remember that leaning into the camera, talking with your hands. On radio or any kind of audio, you have to paint a picture with your words. Be very descriptive. You know, this family lived in a shack. There was no running water, no electricity. Now, are they in a Taj Mahal? No. But do the kids know where the next meal is coming from? Yes. Are the parents employed full time? Yes. Know the hard stops in radio. They generally will have to stop for a newscast at the top of the hour, at exactly the top of the hour. If you're on at 3:55 p.m., you know you're going to wrap up at 3:59:30. And variety of your vocal delivery is crucial. If it's just a monotone all the time, people will just tune you out. They're gone. In a podcast, you can stretch out a little more. It can be more conversational, more back and forth. You can have longer form questions and answers, and you can build a relationship with both the interviewer and the listener. All right, we're getting close to the end here, guys. So if you have questions, get them together. Your success checklist ahead of time. Research the host and the show. Prepare ahead of time. 3 to 5 key talking points, at least 3. Okay. Know that you're going to get those out. One of them should be your soundbite. Practice your soundbite and make it sizzle. Have some water nearby. You don't want to get dry. Test your technology ahead of time, like I should have done with the slides earlier, right? Arrive early and stay late. You know, if you got an interview at 4 o'clock and it's in studio, get there at 3:45 so that they're not nervous you're not going to show up. And sometimes the next guest doesn't show up. 1 out of every 10 times, offer to stick around. Hey, if your next person isn't here, I'll take that extra slot. Secure the social proof. What is that? That's the video of you being on TV. It's the audio of your radio or podcast interview, and then blast that out on your social media. That triples each appearance's effectiveness. In other words, you tell people you're going to do it. Hey, catch me on WXYZ TV this Thursday morning at 11. Tell them that in socials. Do it really well. That's your second impression. And then the third is afterwards. Hey, it was great to be on WXYZ at 11. If you missed it, here's the link. So then you've got 3 impressions from that one interview. Maximize every one of them. Remember to thank the host immediately. Thank them verbally, follow up with an email, or even, if you can do it, a handwritten thank you note, because nobody does those anymore and they go up on cork boards. I see them from our clients at TV stations, radio stations all over the country. Share that you did this on social media. Help them build their audience because they are in the audience building business. That's what they want. They need more eyeballs, they need more ears, they need more readers. Okay. So if you can help them grow their audience by amplifying your appearance on your socials, they're going to love that. And send them additional resources afterwards. Hey, Fred, thanks for having me on the show. Listen, I wanted to send this over to you. I thought your viewers might find it interesting. If you want to share it on your socials, by all means, please do. And that helps you to harvest return visits. This should not be a one and done. You need to get into their mental Rolodex as the expert on adult education and education advocacy in your hometown. Learn from what other people do wrong. And boy, do I have a long list. I've had this company 25 years. I've seen people do it wrong. If you don't understand the media and the press as you go into this, that's a real problem. In today's environment, the words the media or mainstream media really get drugged through the mud. What we're primarily talking about is not the big national talk shows, not MSNBC, not Fox News. We're talking about your local radio station, your local TV station. Those people live in your community. They generally are right down the middle. That's who you need to make friends with. Okay. If you over prepare to the point where you sound robotic, that's an issue. Be ready to bob and weave like a boxer. Okay. Be ready to go where the conversation takes you. Conversely, if you are underprepared and you have no idea what in the world you're going to talk about, that's a real problem. Don't forget the audience. What do they need? They need to be entertained and informed. Entertained and informed. Always keep that in mind. Don't forget the media pro's job is to build their audience. Help them build their audience with good content. Sometimes when people get really nervous, they tend to talk really, really fast. Don't do that. Pace yourself. If you talk too fast, people will not be able to keep up with what you're saying. And if you don't have fun with the process, don't do it. Find somebody else in your shop to do it. You should have fun. And fake it till you make it. The more you prepare, the more this breeds confidence. The more you do this, the better you're going to get at it. Embrace your expertise. You know how this works. You know what there is to know about adult education, way more than the interviewer or the viewer, reader, or listener. They invited you to be on the show. Bring the content. Your message matters. Now, how do you know if this works? Well, you might see an uptick in website visits or telephone inquiries. You might see your engagement on social media increase. That generally happens. You may be asked to speak at the Rotary Club, the Lions Club. You may get more interview requests. You might get adult learners and their families reaching out to you directly. You see in the grocery store and say, hey, saw you on TV, want to ask you about this. Or you may get absolutely nothing. It may be silence. And you go, that didn't work. Why did I even bother with that? Well, there are two things about that. One is the more you do this in media, the more you hit up against that glass ceiling. So stay after it. The other thing about silence is 96, and this is a real percentage, 96% of people will never interact with media in any way at any time. They're the silent majority that just watch, listen, and read. So don't let that worry you. So develop those signature stories, review all your platforms, have your online media kit ready to go. They're going to ask maybe for a photo, they ask for your talking points. Have that ready at all times. Build those relationships. Don't let it be transactional. Make friends. Look for non-media co-promotional opportunities. Who can you tie in with in your community? Is there a business that likes what you do and you like what they do? Develop your concentric circles in your target. Yes, you're there to talk about adult ed, but what else around the adult ed center of the target can you use as your foothold in and become that go-to expert? And by the way, remember the beer drinkers. This is not targeted towards Sharon. The beer drinkers analogy is this: 20% of beer drinkers drink 80% of the beer out there, right? So remember those folks. Who's your 20%? Go get them. Here's what I want you to do this week. Record yourself on your phone answering 5 common questions. Practice that elevator pitch. Find 3 outlets in your market, your local newspaper, local podcast, local radio station. Get your signature story together and be ready to go after it. Go get that earned media. Now, there's a lot of information really quick. You're media ready now. Trust your expertise, serve your audience, have a good time all the time. What you do with adult ed deserves to be heard. So go out there and make it happen. Now, if you have any questions, put them in the chat room. I'm going to answer as many as I can. And I'm going to give you right now a free gift because I know I burned through this really fast. I wrote a little book called Becoming Semi Famous. It's a micro book. I'm going to give it to you free. Scan that QR code. The book is yours, no obligation. If you have other questions, that's my phone number to the office. That's my personal email address. I believe in what you do. I want to help. So by all means, reach out. And that's what I have to say about that. So are there any questions? Anything that I can answer for anyone, Sharon?
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Burke. Awesome job.
You're
You
very
all
welcome.
can see why we're so excited to have Burke speak about this topic and why COABE has partnered with him. Um, Very inspirational. Yes. So we do have just one question.
Sure.
How can you find specific resources to bring your stories to life to ensure your impact and inspire others? That was by Elise Mitchell.
Hey, Elise. So that's a great question. So the question is, I think, how do you find those media outlets in your market? So the great thing is, in the internet world, almost all of this content and contact information is readily available. I'm going to give you one website that we use all the time to help find the local radio talk show. And you may want to jot this website down. It's www.radio locator.com. That is a database of all 12,000 radio stations in America. And there's a link to each one, and you can go in and search your market. You want to see, what stations are in Kansas City, it will show you all of them, all their dial positions, and their formats. And for adult ed, you want to think about who your users are. And I would start with the news talk stations. And then you click on that radio station, look for that local talk show host. You don't want to go try to find Sean Hannity or Glenn Beck. You want to get to the local person in your local market. And that's where you want to go.
Well, that's great. Alan or Burke, it looks like that's the only question we had. We'll give folks one more minute here, and I just want to say, this team was able to get us in front of so many outlets, all through our Invest in the Midwest and highlighting Hawaii's tours. And we'll be heading out to the Southwest now. We'll be going to New Mexico and Arizona, and they'll be helping us there as well. Our goal is to raise visibility all across the nation, and we really appreciate your help at the local level with you reaching out and at the state level, reaching out to those radio shows and the podcasts and TV stations. So, Burke, thank you for preparing our audience here. I see one more question.
Sure.
Can you review Cell one more time? And maybe you could share your slides for that one. That would be great.
Oh, the cell slide. You like that one, huh? All right. Let me see if I can get back to that. And by the way, we are happy to share these with you anytime. So let's see here. Slideshow and
And
there.
this will also go out to everybody who registered. And now I just looked, there's over 200 that registered. So everybody will have access to these as well.
Oh, that's terrific. You bet. So this is the acronym for CELL, guys. Going to sell. Does that show up on the screen for you yet, Sharon?
It sure
Great.
does. It looks great.
Terrific. So story, you got to hook them with a narrative. And there are so many great adult ed stories like Landau, but you have one in your market too. Who is that one person or persons whose lives have changed for the better, not just for their life, but generationally to come? Establish your credibility. That's the E. What do you know about adult ed? I guarantee it's way more than anybody in your audience does. And I want to emphasize that again. We all live in our own little silos where, we know so much about this one thing that you begin to assume that everybody knows it. They don't. I knew so little about adult ed until I became involved with Landau and with West Virginia Adult Ed and now with COABE. And then the two L's, the lesson. What's the actionable value you can give? And maybe in today's environment, it's, our funding is not guaranteed in 2026. This could all go away unless we do something. And here's what you can do to help. Here's how you can get in front of it. And then the second L is the link. How to connect back to your local organization. You got to make it easy for people to find you. Here's where we are. Here's our phone number. Here's our email address. Make it easy for people to get to you.
Great. Okay. I have one last question, Burke. How do you handle a troll? This person had someone join via Q&A who was really aggressive and the host allowed them to continue. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Sure, and that goes back to the bridging language and the redirects, right? So you will have trolls, not very often, because at the end of the day, gang, what you do is good. You are out there doing well by doing good in your community. But should you have someone that disagrees with your philosophy, remember to redirect and bridge away from those folks. And you can use language like, well, the real issue here is, or perhaps, let's say they come after you about this, oh, this is a waste of taxpayer dollars and we've got to cut somewhere. And you could say, well, the real answer here is, and then have the real answer. Or, I can't tell you that, but what I can tell you is, and if they get really, really nasty, Sharon, the one thing that I always keep is the redirect of last resort. You can say, well, Fred, with all due respect, and then you can dress them down just a little bit. Save that for last. But generally speaking, you can redirect back to your area of expertise. And again, I believe in your mission, and I really do believe in my heart that you're doing well by doing good. So being able to shut trolls down will be easier for you guys than for most folks.
And I'll also say, Burke, one of our strategies has been when you make that connection, a lot of times people will be frustrated and think like, oh, we're taking money from taxpayers and how is this really going to good use? And when you're able to show them, hey, we're helping people get off of welfare into family sustaining jobs, the completion rates, all of the different pieces, how it's helping them to get jobs, get into community college, breaking those intergenerational poverty cycles as well. Usually that really we say it's like that two for one, right? They're getting them off of welfare and into the family sustaining job. Now they're becoming a taxpayer instead of being on benefits. And that
That's
usually
exactly right.
helps.
And
So,
that lays right into the cell analogy that's on the screen right now, the story and the expertise. Here's the story, and here are the statistics to back it up. You guys have those statistics. You've got access to all that data. And if you can marry that with an anecdote of a family in your market that has changed their lives, that's huge. That's a huge sell.
I have just two more quick things to share here. We have this Educate and Elevate map locator. If you come in here, you're going to be able to find, I'm going to put this in the chat box. You can find data sheets for your state. Also on our homepage, Educate and Elevate, the award-winning National Public Awareness Campaign, there's all this information we're talking about here, those facts that really help people understand the value of adult education. The other piece I wanted to say is when you do advertise and put out there, hey, we got onto the news, let us know. Tag COABE. We'd love to amplify your success. We have a Padlet. I think we're pushing on over 350 now, different sorts of events and activities that have taken place since the start of the year. And we'd love to add yours to that, but also on social media and also in our newsletters and public policy posts and things like that. So just want to encourage you, always tag us and we have a great social media coordinator who will put it out as well. So thank you so much. I think our last question here is from Joyce. Can you put the slide with the QR code up one more time? And
Joyce,
while
for you, I will do it. I wouldn't do it for anybody, just anybody, but Joyce, for you, you got absolutely. And just snap that photo, and you should get the ebook absolutely free. And we just go into more detail on some of the specific things that I mentioned. But by all means, my email address is there too. If you got a challenge in your own market and I can help you brainstorm around it, I want to see this succeed. I have seen with my friend Landau how impactful that was for him and his family, his young son. He wanted to inspire his son that anything's possible, to dream big. And so, if I can help you in any way to get media attention in your market, I'm happy to do it. And it's super important that you guys get the word out there and preserve this. It is so crucial to America.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, Burke. Thank you, everybody who took the time to join us. We hope to see you during National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. We would hope to see those podcast interviews and radio interviews and TV slots come in. But we really appreciate all that you're doing and know that it's really important during this critical time when funding is tenuous. So thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.